Yeah, the next concept we're going to go over is the Lego model. This is a kind of very simple, straightforward way to envision like how and what to learn. And this is pretty much how I understand the entire world. A lot of people have asked me, Rahul included, like, Alex, how do you code so fast? Like, how did you write like this entire like onboarding flow in like 2 hours? And it's because I use the Lego model. So first, let's go through kind of like how the Lego model works. The point of Legos is you have like all these different pieces, and your goal is to put together these pieces into cool combinations, right? Like you have all these kind of small blocks here and there, and you put them together in a certain way, and then you make something cool, right? That's pretty much how tech works. So, like in tech, there's all these different tech components. A tech component is essentially like a kind of a granular, piece of like technology or some feature. So like being able to write Facebook login on web. That's a Lego, for example, right? So those are your Legos, and then your goal is to take all these different Legos, like onboarding flow, image loading, pagination, feed, whatever. You put them together to create some sort of product, right? Like website, app, API, machine learning model, right? So once we have this understanding of the world in mind, we have three governing principles on how you should essentially learn using the Lego model. So your three goals are: number one, get lots of Legos, like learn to do many different things, learn to do Facebook login, Google login, backend, REST API, CRUD, all this other stuff, right? Pretty much everyone understands this. And I can see this from my LinkedIn feed of people kind of sharing like, oh yeah, I just took, some course on like Node.js, or took a course on Postgres. So people understand that like learning lots of different things equals good, which is true. What a lot of people don't understand are these next two concepts. Number one of these next two concepts is get high quality Legos. So you want to be in a situation where when you put your Legos together, no individual piece is just crummy and like falls apart, right? Like when it's really put to the test by being combined with all these other Legos to put something actually graceful and something that's actually like useful as an end product. So like when you're, and this is what's different, because like in regular Lego world, like you buy them and they should be high quality, but for us learning in tech, we're actually creating the Legos ourselves. So when you kind of create this Lego that you can then plug into other places, you determine how robust and high quality that Lego is, right? And you want that Lego to be, again, as high quality as possible, because you don't want to build stuff that just falls apart. And the next concept, again, like this is something that is hard for people to understand, because most people just understand like the quantity portion. I just want to learn as many things as possible. Is when you are, not only do you have to care about how you construct the Lego, you also have to figure out which Legos you want to acquire. So when you're kind of deciding of like, which Legos do I want in my collection, which things do I want to learn, you want to get core high demand Legos, because there are some Legos that are used in many different products. And then there are some Legos that are very specific and only go into like one or two or three different products, right? You obviously want to get the high demand Legos, because then you're going to be much more popular, right? Like when it comes to like the people who care about your Lego collection, you can think of them as employers, right? They want to see like what kind of Legos you have and how high quality those Legos are. If you have a bunch of qualities, if you have a bunch of Legos that they don't care about, then like why would they hire you, right? So now that we've kind of gone through the three core concepts of like how to operate within this Lego world, approaching your learning in tech, we can kind of go through some examples. So here's an example of how to construct a high quality Lego. And this is a super, super common example because I have seen this all the time. So one of the most common things that people learn to build when they're starting off in tech is some sort of onboarding flow. You have like email input, password input, and then you have a button to submit those to, and then it probably inserts some rows into a database. So it's full stack. So amazing. Like I have seen this so many times on pretty much everyone's like personal software projects that they built for school and built for boot camp and they shared at LinkedIn. And I did this too. when I was at UCLA, I remember I took a databases course, and one of the ways we learned databases was we built like some small website that, once you played around with it, it was a CRUD app, and then it inserts up in a database, but it had a really crappy onboarding flow. So I was kind of part of this first half here, which is, building a really crappy onboarding flow, which is a low quality Lego, which again, is not really a value. So if we kind of move on to the next part of like, how do we evolve this kind of onboarding Lego into high quality Lego? Like we see now the depth of like what it truly means to build a real onboarding flow, right? And this is what the engineers at real companies are doing when they build onboarding flows. So there's like all these different things you have to think about, right? Like email input, they can enter into bogus email. Yeah, same thing with like passwords. You want to make sure you have some amount of constraints on like the length and maybe has special character, confirm password. Because like if you don't have a confirmed password, there's a chance that the user can just type out their password and then like they'll just never be able to log into their account because they don't remember what their password is. And usually the password is kind of fuzzed out, right? You have the black dots instead of like the clear text. Similarly, like show password toggle. This is a feature on a lot of onboarding flows. Like if you really want to, you can look at what you've actually typed in to make extra sure you didn't typo. Of course, forgot password flow. Like people are human. Not everyone uses a password manager. If you've forgotten your password and you don't have this flow, that you're locked out of your account, right? You don't really want that to happen to a production user. And then I'm not going to go through the rest of them because it'll take like a year. But we can see, and we've all probably experienced this before, looking at the onboarding page for real apps, real websites, that building a true production level onboarding flow has all these different things, right? And like any real company, like among this big list at the bottom next to the green check, they want at least half of these, right? Probably like 75, 80% of these, right? And like if we look around at like, you know, the onboarding flows that people are building and the materials that teach you how to build onboarding flows, almost pretty much none of them do this bottom half. They almost always do this top half, which is a very shallow form of learning. There's like, I just want you to be able to get the most basic thing working so you can feel proud of yourself and be like, oh, I learned how to make an onboarding flow, right? But here's the problem, as mentioned before. This top low quality Lego, no one wants that. There is no real company that will allow you to build an onboarding flow that is so basic and has all these holes in it, right? So if you have like learned like this top part, which pretty much most people learn after like even if they're new to coding, they'll learn how to do it within 2-3 months. No one cares because again, you cannot deploy this top part to production. It is not a valuable Lego at all to any employer, right? And Rahul and I know that, you know, the vast majority of people in this community, I think like at least 55 to 70%, like their main goal right now is to either find like a job, like either find their first job or to find like a better tech job than what they have now. And a lot of folks are, well, how do I get the job? How do I get my dream job? How do I get a job, right? And this concept, I think, is really important there, right? You want to actually learn what employers want, right? So like this first part, it's easy to feel good about it. Like if you learn how to build an onboarding flow and you don't know how to do it before, like, oh yeah, I wrote some code. But again, employers don't want that. They cannot deploy this to production. But this bottom part here, they actually can deploy this to production. They have deployed to production, right? And so when you actually start framing your learning like this, like I want all of my Legos to be like a production company level Lego, that's when the employers will be like, whoa, I want to hire this person because they've already done what I do. But you know, they've already learned like how to write company production level code on their own time. Yeah. Rahul, anything
There's
to add here?
also, yeah, there's also a meta point here, which is around what do you want to learn? I think this is a great example where if you're actually at a company, then of course, no company will tolerate a quality of product like what we have in the top half. They are always a production level, like any real company will want the full flow as shown in the bottom. But if you're building a personal project, you should think long and hard about where are you investing your time? Because for most applications, the onboarding flow will not differentiate you in a meaningful way from other app developers or other people who might be also applying for a job. And so that's actually why, like for Imber, for example, Alex and I didn't actually want to spend, the 3 days or 1 week or 2 weeks that I would require to get the onboarding flow with the email, password, sign up correct. Instead, we just opted for Facebook and Google login. And so do some reflection, like do some meta thinking about, do you want to solve this problem or do you want to basically punt the problem or like avoid the problem altogether and actually spend your time on things that you might find more interesting? Because I think you're also going to learn a lot more, obviously, if you're interested in the thing that you're doing, the time that you're spending on the code or on the programming. If you actually care about what you're building, you're obviously going to be a lot more motivated and therefore learn a lot more. Okay, and then last one is showing a list of items. Alex, I'll let you explain like the details behind it. But if you think this is a core Lego, give us a thumbs up. If you don't think it's a core Lego, give us a thumbs down.
Showing a list of items, I don't really know how to explain the core details behind it because it's so simple. It's like you have kind of like an ordering of things. You have many things either from top to bottom or left to right. This one is one of the most core Legos ever. And this is essentially the Lego I've taken the most advantage of um, kind of in my career. I'm really good at rendering lists in Android. I've done it both at my day job and on personal projects. And the reason for it is like if you think about all the apps you use, all of them have a list somewhere, right? Like if not in the core product, it's at least there's a list in settings, right? There's always a demand at pretty much every company for someone who can build a really good list, like a list that has, delete functionality, update functionality, add functionality, infinite scrolling, stuff like that. So this is like one of the best Legos to have. And this is why I'm able to build apps so quickly. Like that's why I've like published 30 plus apps, because like really like the vast majority of apps are just kind of content displaying list apps, Ember included. So I've done this many, many times before. This is a Lego I have refined into oblivion. Like I've written like a really smooth scrolling list with all the features I mentioned before, like 50 times. So like whenever I build like a new list, doesn't matter like what it's displaying, I can build it in like 2 hours. So yeah, this is one of the, I think the best examples of like a core Lego. And if you're a front end engineer, your web, iOS or Android, this is something that you should probably know. And there's a very high chance you'll be asked this on an interview. Like, how do you build a list? Like, how do you build like a Twitter feed in web, or how do you build a Twitter feed in iOS or something?